This program only reflects the personal views of the program hosts and/or the individual contributors.
Newsline, I'm Michael Chagani. Tonight, have the radicals hijacked the democracy movement? Now, I don't know whether the radicals have hijacked the democracy movement, but my guest here, Joseph Chang, you're the convener for the Alliance of True Democracy. And Ed Chin, now you're a hedge fund manager, but you also are a member of the Occupy Central movement, and you look after the finance side. And I thought that finance people oppose Occupy Central, but you're a member of it. So let me just, okay, now Professor Chang, let me just go to you first. Have the radicals hijacked the democracy movement? Many people are saying they have. Your movement, the Alliance for True Democracy, which is a combination of so-called pro-Democrats in the Legislative Council, you formed an alliance. These are all legislative councillors. But there is now a crack in this alliance because I think the Democratic Party says after the referendum in June, they're going to leave the alliance. How is that affecting the unity of the Democrats in Hong Kong?
Well, in the first place, there's no such thing as hijacking. This is
They've taken over. Let me rephrase that.
Most absurd idea concept introduced in the media. Every one of them are highly independent, highly outspoken politicians. Of course, they think about the overall interest, they think about their individual interests, and so on. So how can anyone force them to adopt a position they don't like? This is obviously absurd. There is a crack in the pro-democracy movement. There has been a crack for many years, as we all know.
But it's sharpened, it's worsened.
It reappears. It probably is still in better shape than in the year 2010, when the Democratic Party went into so-called secret negotiations with the Central Liaison Office. These differences are natural and almost inevitable because when dealing with the Chinese authorities, you naturally have slightly different orientations. Some would like to talk, some would say talk is useless, let's go to the streets, and so on. But despite all these so-called cracks and differences, we are all united in demanding a genuinely competitive and democratic electoral system, offering Hong Kong people meaningful choices.
Well, let me go to Ed Chin. Ed Chin, as I said, you're with Occupy Central, and you're also a hedge fund manager, and you look at the finance side of Occupy Central. When I said the radicals have hijacked the movement, I meant that the Alliance for True Democracy is now very splintered, and they feel that radical groups like Long Hair and People Power have not stayed united in the alliance, even though it's called an alliance. Now, Occupy Central, you had a so-called deliberation day, and you were looking for models to put to the public on June the 20th or the 22nd for them to choose a democracy model. The three models that Occupy Central voted, there were only a couple of thousand people, and they voted the three most radical models proposed by a student group, Scholarism, proposed by radical legislators, and proposed by your group. Your group, so-called moderate group, got the least votes. So has the Occupy Central movement been hijacked by radicals?
I don't think so. Well, actually, let's rewind the clock back a year and 3 months ago when I first met up with Professor Benny Tai. That after he wrote that article at Hong Kong Economic Journal.
Proposing a civil disobedient movement.
Right. It sounds like pretty mind-boggling. And so we, as a finance people, we did our due diligence on Professor Tai. I call him up and say, hey, let's have a chat in Landmark. And after that, we started the Occupy Central Finance Group, but the official name should be Finance and Banking Professionals Who Support OC.
All right, but then have the radicals taken over the movement?
I think people's choice for now, it's they are pretty much, they want civil nomination inside whatever movement that they want to go into. Now, if I may say, the most important thing right now is we got 3 more weeks before the
so-called referendum.
Vote. Yeah,
on
referendum
June the 20th,
from
right?
June 20th to the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing for us in the finance sector, we think it's to really encourage people to come out and vote, because
why do you support Occupy Center? You say you're a hedge fund manager. Everybody is saying, people in the business sector are saying that if they occupy Central, businesses will be hurt, the economy will be hurt. I would have thought that as a hedge fund manager and a finance guy, you would be opposed to Occupy Central.
Everyone wants a fair play, fair competition in Hong Kong. And when people really, I think especially people who are pro-establishment, they exaggerate the number, and then, like how many hours of blocking the streets, the stock exchange market cap would be lost, or trading losses, and then the business would be hurt. Honestly, the data center right now is in Cheung Kwan O. The Hong Kong EX is just a representative, it's a place in Central. So I don't see that happening, to be honest.
So, okay, Ed, let me just ask you one more question. You mentioned Benny Tai. Benny Tai was here several times, and
Correct.
He told me in the past, and he told me that they will occupy Central, they will lie down peacefully, and they will not move. They will not move if they're told to move. They will wait until they're dragged away. When they're dragged away, they won't be fighting back. They'll allow themselves to be dragged away, okay? So if 10,000 people overtake an area in Central, let's say Queens Road, you as a hedge fund manager is saying that will have zero effect on the business of Hong Kong?
Honestly, I don't know whether there will be 10,000 people yet, but so far, up till today, we are on Sunday, June 1st, today, right? The way I see it is that after a year and 3 months of writing, debating, we are still in the talking mode and the debating mode in a very civilized way. We haven't really reached that point yet.
All right, Joseph Cheng, I'm going to come back to you. You did say that the democracy movement is fractured, it's splintered, and you did say...
I didn't say that. I said there are differences.
There are differences, but you say it's not as bad as it was in 2010,
yes,
when the Democratic Party went to the liaison office and discussed political reforms. But you do now have the Democratic Party saying that after this so-called referendum on June the 20th, they will no longer be a part of your alliance.
Yes, it is unfortunate.
You don't call that a division? You don't call that a split?
There is a division, there are differences.
This is not an argument, they're actually leaving the movement.
I'm not arguing, as I was saying, the Democratic Party is important. Mm-hmm. It is unfortunate that it has chosen to leave, but we decide to fight on. But I repeat all the time, we share the same demand, that we must have a genuinely competitive and democratic electoral system.
But also, aside from the Democratic Party, your alliance was supposed to have gone into this deliberation day of Occupy Central some time back to choose models for the coming referendum. The parties that were in your group, Long Hair's League of Social Democrats and People Power, they did not toe your Alliance for True Democracy line and went with their own models.
Well,
So they even betrayed your movement.
They adopted a strategy of trying to ensure that all three options, all three models chosen had a civic nomination element. That was their strategy.
Which is going to be rejected by Beijing.
They didn't tell us.
They didn't tell you that that's a betrayal.
We are not happy about it, but there is some sympathy and understanding for this kind of strategy. But at the same time, there is some anger and displeasure with this kind of strategy. Hence the division. But going back to your point of again hijacking and so on. Now, we all understand that those who took part in the voting on May the 4th and 6th represented a very specific sample, 2,500 people supporting the Occupy Central campaign. So this is a specific sample. But at the same time...
But those are the samples being put forward on June the 20th.
No, let me finish. We have been conducting at least 4 scientific large-scale polls by Hong Kong U, and they all demonstrate that there is a massive majority of Hong Kong people supporting civic nomination. These polls, scientific polls, reflect the community's overall view. By the ratio of at least 2 to 1, sometimes 3 to 1, Hong Kong people have chosen to support civic nomination because they understand that this is the most effective mechanism against a political screening process, and they don't like that.
So, okay, Ed Chin, let me go back to you. As Professor Chang said, the majority of people support civic nomination.
Right.
And the Occupy Central movement, when they had their deliberation day in May, did put out 3 proposals, all containing civic nomination. But you know, Ed Chin, that the central authorities will never